Ever since the earliest days of hot rod building, enthusiasts have been obsessed with tinkering with standard-issue chassis to transform them into something far more personalized. Sometimes the end goal might involve going faster, improving handling, or simply standing out in the crowd. For Michael Autinko, he wanted all of the above, and his vision revolved around creating something BMW had previously teased but never released, an E46 M3 wagon. Street activities. Cars and modifications began in the mid-90s for Michael as he took hold of an Acura Integra, involving himself in San Diego's legendary street racing scene. The two-door version of Acura's entry-level coupe was the car to have at that time, but Michael much preferred the four-door version. His interest in sedans only grew and later turned into a BMW fascination once the E46 was unveiled. The E46 has such a timeless design that still looks great today, and is the best generation M3 in many opinions, he says. With the introduction of the E46 I became a BMW fan but didn't have BMW money while in school. A bit older, funds would finally materialize, and Michael took hold of his first BMW in the form of an affordable E90. A sedan chassis, of course. Later, in 2009, he would end up living in Japan where he'd break his four-door rule with an R33 GTR. I mean, back then, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity since it was almost impossible to legally own a GTR in the US, unlike today, he explains. It was during his overseas days that he stumbled upon Japan's van and wagon culture, the impact of which stuck with him as he returned to the US. Back in the States, he moved on to another BMW, this time an E60 which he still owns to this day, and to get around the ridiculous gas prices, he picked up a Scion XB. That too ended up getting a bevy of modifications, the majority of which were straight from Japan. Finally, in 2017, his friend Alex and his E46 Touring, fitted with a few parts from an M3, dictated his next move. Michael adds, the idea of building an E46 M3 Touring conversion came about. The thought of having the performance of an M3 in a touring package was extremely appealing to me. BMW plants the seed. The idea was originally hatched by BMW when they built a prototype E46 M3 touring wagon and touted it as the ultimate performance people mover, but the project never made it to production. There weren't many attempts by wagon owners and very little info available, but fortunately his friend Alex was able to help gain assistance from a slew of shops, friends, and associates to get the project underway. The first order of business was swapping the entire engine and drivetrain from a donor M3 into the wagon. This included the 6-speed transmission and differential, as well as the subframes and all of the suspension components. Once it was up and running, Michael and his cousins dug into the finer details of the swap and its emissions system to get the wagon ready for its face-off with California's Bureau of Automotive Repair, BAR. Closing parenthesis. The process required multiple trips to the state facility, but eventually the group made all of the necessary changes to earn official certification for the swapped wagon to be driven on the streets of California legally. As good as the wagon was with its new S54 swap, Michael wanted the look of an E46 M3 and, unfortunately, body panels between the two chassis aren't interchangeable and some require substantial changes. The front fenders, for example, had to be cut and heavily modified, and once they were finished, the M3 hood and front bumper could be bolted in place, though Michael opted for a CSL-style bumper. The rear bumper was also dissected, needing both additional clearance for the hatch and some reshaping to meet the M3 fender flares that were massaged and welded directly to the wagon's body. In keeping with the makeover theme, OEM M3 seats were reupholstered in red leather and installed as was a black suede headliner and pillars. Additional touches include an M Performance shift knob and pedals that complement the Alcantara steering wheel and a set of NXC M3 gauge faces. Isolate yourself to the front portion of the cabin and the feel is entirely M3, and though the rear is unmistakably wagon with its ample cargo space just behind, the reupholstered M3-style rear seats continue the theme. There's always more. After the extensive body work was completed, the car was resprayed and the OEM Plus build he'd long been envisioning was a running, driving reality. However, like all of the cars in his past, Michael's urge to upgrade and modify was too much to resist. A Status Group HRTG front lip and ducktail rear spoiler were added, along with KG front and rear splitters, and set of OEM M3 mirrors. 4 different wheel setups have been used by Michael, the most recent of which is Ray's 18x 9.5 bulk TE37 SL that reveal Porsche 996 brake calipers over CSL competition rotors. Ground control coilovers with integrated camber plates backed by SPC rear adjustable arms allowed Michael to set his ride height before having a proper alignment performed. Originally, a Dynon intake was the only change to the S54-equipped engine bay, but Michael removed that and exposed the individual throttle bodies, adding velocity stacks and incorporating a custom intake duct and air shield behind the driver's side headlight while the center grille opening received an AFE air scoop. Status group headers and an SCZA exhaust system replaced the stock pieces, as did a Moriso aluminum expansion tank. Finally, a very rare carbon fiber engine cover with integrated ignition coil cooling duct was added and a radium oil catch plumbed and tucked away at the firewall. Wagons aren't all that popular with average American buyers that would rather jump behind the wheel of an SUV, crossover, or sedan, but the enthusiast community has always drooled over performance-minded long-roof models available in other countries. This particular sporty, utilitarian mashup managed to escape everyone. Guys like Michael Ontinko weren't willing to let a good thing get away and took it upon themselves to create their own version, and this is by far the most detailed example we've ever seen. Next on his to-do list is installing a Rogue Engineering El Diablo exhaust that he's already sourced. He adds, "It seems like a never-ending project, but I've enjoyed every minute of it and I'm excited to see what comes next."